The galactic trading hub of Zentara 9 pulsed with the rhythmic hum of 1,000 species conducting business. Banks stood before the holographic display, his fingers dancing across the projected interface as he finalized the coordinates for humanity's most ambitious jump yet, a wormhole trajectory that would cut travel time to the Andromeda Relay by 70%. "The calculations are flawless," Banks muttered to himself, double-checking the quantum mechanics one final time. Around him, alien merchants haggled over exotic goods, while station security drones floated past in their endless patrol patterns. A voice, raspy and ancient, cut through his concentration. Banks turned to find a hunched figure draped in tattered robes that had once been a brilliant azure, but now bore the stains of neglect and time. The creature before him was Zytherian, a species whose empire had crumbled 3 millennia ago. Her 6 eyes, clouded with cataracts, somehow seemed to peer directly through him. She extended a trembling appendage, begging for credits. Banks laughed, not cruelly, but with the confident amusement of someone who had spent 15 years mastering gravitational physics and quantum navigation. "Ma'am, with all respect, these calculations have been verified by Earth's finest quantum computers and the Collective's AI systems." The Zytherian woman's mandibles clicked softly. "The machines see numbers." She shuffled closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The void remembers, young one." Banks pressed a few credits into her gnarled hand, more out of politeness than belief, and returned to his work. Within the hour, he had transmitted the coordinates to the Earth Expeditionary Fleet. Humanity's greatest voyage would begin in 3 cycles. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but the ripple it sent through subspace communications was deafening. Banks stood in the emergency command center on Zentara 9, his face ashen as reports flooded in. The lead vessel, Prometheus Rising, had entered the wormhole exactly according to his calculations. Then it had simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, ceased. The quantum signature had been erased from reality itself, along with 12,000 souls aboard. "Gravitational shear at the event horizon," one analyst reported. "Subspace folding anomaly," another offered. Banks heard them, but their voices seemed distant. In his mind, he kept hearing that raspy voice, "Your calculations are wrong." He left the command center without a word, ignoring the calls from his superiors. His feet carried him through the winding corridors of the station, past the glittering shops and exotic food stalls, into the lower sectors where the lights flickered and the air smelled of recycled coolant and desperation. He found her in an alley between 2 derelict housing units, curled beneath a thermal blanket that had seen better decades. "You knew," Banks said, his voice barely above a whisper. The Zytherian woman's eyes opened slowly, all 6 fixing upon him. "I told you." Banks knelt beside her, his pride shattered like debris in a meteor field. "Help me understand, please." She studied him for a long moment, her mandibles working soundlessly. Finally, she spoke. "Sit, human." Over the next hours, she spoke, and Banks listened with the intensity of a man trying to catch water in his hands. The Zytherian Empire had possessed technology that made human achievements look like cave paintings. They had mastered dimensional physics, had built gates that folded space like origami. "We calculated everything," she said, her voice heavy with ancient grief. "Every variable, every quantum fluctuation. Our machines were perfect." Banks leaned forward. "Intention, memory. The universe is not a dead thing, human. It is vast and slow and terrible in its awareness." She paused, her breathing labored. "That's impossible." Her laugh was like grinding stone. "You saw your ship erased, not destroyed. Your physics cannot explain it because your physics treats space as a canvas. It is not." Banks felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How do we fix it?" "You ask?" You respect. You calculate not just the mathematics of force and energy, but the cost. Every jump leaves a scar. She reached into her robes and withdrew a small, crystalline device that pulsed with a faint inner light. This is a harmonic resonator, the last of its kind. Banks took it with trembling hands. Why give this to me? We're not your people. Her mandibles formed what might have been a smile. Because 3,000 years ago we were where you are now. Proud, brilliant, certain of our calculations. No one warned us. No one could. She tapped his chest with one crooked digit. 3 cycles later, Banks stood before the Galactic Council, presenting findings that would revolutionize understanding of space travel. The harmonic resonator's data had revealed patterns invisible to conventional sensors, the fatigue points in local space-time where the fabric had been overused and was actively hostile to further intrusion. New routes were calculated, not just on speed and distance, but on sustainability. Humanity became the first species in recorded history to propose a rest period for heavily trafficked space lanes, allowing the dimensional membrane to heal. The other species had laughed at first, just as Banks had laughed at the beggar woman. But the data was irrefutable. As for Asha, Banks had hired her immediately as humanity's first dimensional ethics consultant, a position that didn't exist until he created it. She now lived in comfortable quarters, her expertise sought by every major species in the collective. On the day of her official appointment, Banks visited her new home. She was standing by the viewport, gazing at the stars she had once ruled. "Your people calculated perfectly," Banks said softly, and still fell. Asha turned, and for the first time, Banks saw something like hope in her ancient eyes. "Because you laughed at an old beggar's warning, and then you sought her out. Humans make mistakes, young one." She placed one gnarled hand on his shoulder. "That is what will save you." Banks nodded, understanding at last why the genre was called HFY. Not because humans were superior in strength or technology, but because in their finest moments, they combined brilliance with humility, ambition with wisdom. The universe was vast and alive and unforgiving. But perhaps, just perhaps, humanity had learned to ask permission before tearing holes in its fabric. Perhaps they had learned to calculate not just the mathematics, but the cost. And in that learning, they had found something worth more than any empire the chance to endure. Hence,